Hi everyone, my name is Dave, and welcome to Extra Credit, a video series where we take an unscripted look at topics related to local history and exploring that history. So before we get started with today's episode, I just wanted to remind everyone to please visit my website where you're going to find all kinds of historical information related to some of the topics that we take a look at in this video series. There is a link in the description. As well, you can follow me on social media. So you'll find me on Facebook, you'll find me on Twitter, you will find me on Instagram. As well, please make sure that you hit that subscribe button. There's always lots of new content that's coming out here on the channel. And by subscribing, you're going to get that information and that material a lot faster than it will appear on social media. So today's episode is all about winter, specifically about winter hiking. Now, just a little bit of an apology as we get started with today's episode. When I started this series earlier this year, the plan was to make an episode every month. If you've been kind of following along, you've noticed that we have not kind of put on an episode since August. And the reason for that is because typically fall is a very, very busy time for me. And last year, the past fall, so the fall of 2020, was not as busy, basically because there was not a lot going down because of the COVID situation. This year, we were kind of a little bit back to normal. And so in addition to work, I also coach football. And so it was really, really busy. And I didn't sort of anticipate being sort of as busy as I thought I would be, right? You sort of think you have a little bit more time. And so essentially between work and between football and between trying to get some hikes in, basically I was doing a video on the Blend River Viaduct. And so I was making a bunch of trips back and forth between here at camp and the viaduct and trying to get some footage with my drone, and then I was trying to do some hikes once the leaves started to come down. And so essentially we didn't really get an episode for September, October, and November, so I do apologize for that. But basically we're going to be having episodes for here on in, and I think in the future we're probably going to try to avoid doing anything for the fall again, just simply because it's just a little too busy. So as I was saying, today's episode is all about winter and specifically winter hiking. So we're now into December. And as I'm sort of describing this to you, I'll kind of give you a little bit of a little perspective of what it looks like outside. It hasn't been too bad. It's supposed to get kind of cold this week. We really haven't had a lot of snow, though we're supposed to potentially get a bit of a dump of snow tomorrow. There's not really a lot of snow in Thunder Bay, but there's a little bit more snow out here at camp. We're kind of in a bit of a snow belt here, and so typically there is usually a bit more snow here than you'll find even in kind of the surrounding area. Usually when I'm kind of driving from home to camp, I'll kind of, there won't be tons of snow, and then all of a sudden I'll kind of get into this area and all of a sudden you'll notice that there is substantially more snow. Anyway, so the whole point of doing this, ladies and gentlemen, is to essentially talk a little bit about sort of winter hiking. Now, from a personal perspective, in the past, I really didn't do a lot of winter hiking per se. Winter isn't really my favorite season. And certainly from a historical exploration perspective, it's not particularly great for doing what it is that I want to do, because generally the snow covers up a lot of the things that I want to see. Ideally, the two best times for me are in the spring before the leaves come out, and then the fall, once the leaves come down, where you can basically see a lot, and certainly there's a lot more vision inside the bush. Anyway, like I said, I have started doing a little bit more kind of winter hiking, and what I wanted to do is kind of pass along some ideas that I have when it comes to things like gear and what I use in the wintertime. Again, I didn't really do a lot of kind of hiking and sort of exploring a lot in the wintertime. Again, winter's not my sort of favorite season. I don't really ski. I don't snowmobile or anything like that. So, kind of walking is I guess, sort of my thing. when I started spending a little bit more time in the outdoors in the wintertime was not long after my kids were born, and probably within a couple of years of my oldest being born. What we started doing was we started kind of going outdoors a little bit. There is a series of trails by my house that kind of go up in sort of the mountain ranges by my home, and we started kind of going out there in the wintertime. I would actually, and the kids were young, and so I would actually kind of pull them on the sled. I'd pull them on the toboggan, and we'd kind of go up. And it is quite a bit of walking and quite a bit of vertical. Essentially, it's almost in some places about 800 feet of vertical that you're going up. And that would become kind of a weekly occurrence with myself and with the boys, and at the time my previous dog with Loki. And so we would do that on the weekends, and I found by doing that over the years that there were certain things that kind of work with me gear wise, and that didn't work. And what I've done is I've sort of gravitated to, now that my boys are older, I've gravitated to doing some kind of, I still go up the mountain, but I've tried to do a few more kind of railway related hikes. I did a bunch last year, more just kind of exploratory, kind of reconnaissance type of hikes, just basically to kind of see things before we actually did the real hike. Perfect example, I was actually out last weekend, actually very, very close to Thunder Bay. I was actually taking a look at one of the last sections of railway line that we need to complete, where the railway line enters Thunder Bay. Thankfully, at the time we really didn't have any snow, and so we were actually able to kind of see a lot of things. And I didn't really have to get into a lot of the winter gear. But anyway, the point is to kind of talk to you a little bit about a few aspects. I'm not going to go through every single thing, but there's a few things that I wanted to kind of point out to you with regard to winter hiking. All right, so the first thing that we're going to take a look at is we're going to take a look at footwear. And so I was describing earlier how when, a number of years ago when I started kind of doing a lot of winter hiking, I was taking the boys up the mountain and pulling them up on the toboggan, and sort of thinking back on that, I sort of look back at that now and just kind of amazed at myself, being able to drag a couple of kids up the mountain on this toboggan. And again, as I said, it's a lot of vertical. It's in some places about 800 feet of vertical going up, and it was kind of a bit of an exhausting process going up the mountain, then coming down and trying to control that toboggan with the kids on there coming down some of the steep sections. And so again, one of the things that I really noticed was kind of the footwear that I was wearing. And I kind of really learned what sort of worked for me and what didn't work for me. So when I first started kind of doing those hikes up the mountain, typically this is what my winter footwear kind of looked like, which is sort of your traditional winter footwear. I don't know where you live in, but around here this is kind of a very common type of thing. So this is basically a sort of a typical winter boot. This is a Sorel boot, very good winter liner, good to like minus 60 Celsius. We'd be in real trouble if I had to wear this out and it was minus 60 outside. Anyway, this is something that I wore a lot when I was sort of going up the mountain at that time. And it was great. They were warm and things like that. I just found it was very awkward to walk. Like, these are really great if there's like deep snow and things like that, or like I said, if it's particularly cold outside. But I found that they were not particularly conducive to to hiking up the mountain. They were very kind of clunky, and they were very awkward and heavy, and I just didn't have really a great sort of experience. They're kind of floppy at the top, right? So you didn't get a lot of sort of ankle support. And I did use them for quite a number of years, kind of going up the mountain. And I sort of found after a while that, maybe there's got to be sort of a better way of doing things. Typically, I was going on a trail that was kind of packed. There was a lot of foot traffic on there. There was people that were, had been riding on their snowmobiles. And the same thing I find now when I kind of do some of the railway hiking, that, the trail is fairly well used. And so you're not kind of wading through the deep snow. And so, I started thinking about, maybe switching to a different type of footwear. So what I did was I switched to this type of boot. I've actually owned these boots for quite a number of years. I bought them in the States, and I've had them for probably 10 years. And they were just kind of kicking around. I was kind of using them occasionally. I think I bought them because they were really, really good price. They're Columbia boots. And I just sort of thought, you know what, if I'm kind of walking on these trails and there's not a ton of snow, it would make a lot more sense to wear something like this. They have a really, really good tread on the bottom. They're very, very durable. Like I said, I've been using them for quite a number of years now, and they're still kind of holding up. They have a rubber upper here, so they have a bit of a rubber part on here, so it helps keep kind of the snow, keep the bottom part of the boot dry, especially sometimes if you're stepping in. Sometimes there can be a little bit sort of wet areas that you don't even realize they're there. Kind of a little bit of a leather upper on top of the rubber, very well insulated, keep your feet nice and warm. The only negative that I would say about it is they do come up fairly high, and I find this back part here, typically when you see a lot of kind of hiking type shoes, they always have some like a little bit of a cutout here at the back, just to kind of allow your leg to kind of flex a little bit as you're walking. And I find that this back part kind of pushes on the back of my leg a little bit, and it can get a little bit sort of sore if I'm, especially the first couple of times I'm using it. After a while, you kind of get sort of used to it. But yeah, again, the only kind of negative to this. So I found these were really great for hiking and things like that. I did find that there was one drawback. And the drawback that I found was that even though you're walking on kind of a nice trail and, it's fairly packed and things like that, you're always going to find that there's times where sometimes you get a little bit of fresh snow, or, you kind of have to step off the trail and the snow is a little bit deep, or even sometimes just in general when you're kind of walking, and sometimes you're kicking up snow. And so because it's not particularly high, there is a tendency for sometimes snow to go inside the boot. And of course, what it's like in the wintertime, you get a bit of snow inside your boot, it gets wet, okay, and not a very particularly pleasant situation. So what ended up happening was, one time I was out up the mountain, and I happened to come across somebody that was walking, and I noticed that they were wearing a pair of these. They were wearing gaiters, and I went, that's a great idea. I need to get myself a pair of those. And so what I did was I invested in a pair of gaiters. Now, if you don't know what gaiters are, essentially they are a footwear accessory. They basically strap on, and I'm going to show you how these go on. They strap on to the bottom part of your boot, and they go up your leg. So essentially what it's doing is combining the great parts of wearing a smaller hiking boot with the benefits of having the big, tall boot. Basically, the concept of gaiter has been around for a long, long time. So how it works is this part kind of straps onto the bottom of your boot. It's adjustable. So there is kind of a little bit of a Velcro tab here that you can adjust that part. Then at the top, there is a drawstring. So you can basically tighten these onto your leg. And again, make sure that there's nothing kind of going into the boot. And then on the front, there is a little hook, and I'll show you how that goes on. And then there's just a big, huge piece of Velcro that sort of Velcros the whole thing together. So what you do is you take your boot and you slip it on from the back, right? So it kind of goes right here, right under that little piece here where your arch of your foot is, kind of slides right underneath that. The only thing I would suggest with these things is not wearing them where it's kind of very kind of, if you're walking on rocks or things like that, where I would imagine that even though this is kind of I don't even know what kind of material this is, that eventually it could rip or could tear. I'm usually just using it when I'm walking on the snow. And so then it kind of loops around the boot like that. And so on the front part, as I mentioned, there's a little metal tab. And so I hook that little metal tab onto the laces of the boot, and then you hook the Velcro up together. If I can do this with it not being on my leg. And then, so voila. So now, again, you have the benefits of having a low-cut boot that's a lot easier to walk in. And then you have the benefits of having the big, tall winter boot that's going to keep the snow out of the boot and keep your leg nice and protected. Again, sometimes even just in general, when you're walking, you're kicking up snow, it's going inside the boot, or sometimes if you have to step off the trail and the snow is a little bit deeper, you can do that without worrying about, getting all kinds of snow inside your boot. And so this has been one of the greatest sort of acquisitions that I've made. And I use these all the time now when I'm hiking in the wintertime. All right, so the other thing that I want to talk a little bit about is I want to talk a little bit about headgear. If you're somebody like me who is on the follically challenged side, headgear is very, very important. I wouldn't even think about going outside in the wintertime without something on my head. And so obviously having a good quality piece of headgear is extremely important. I kind of, I've been obviously wearing headgear for a long period of time. I don't know what they call this where you're from. I know for anybody who's watching south of the border, sometimes they call this a winter cap, etc. Here in Canada, this is a toque. Everybody knows what this is. It's a toque. So to any American viewers out there, that's the term we're going to use, and you should learn how to use the term toque as well, because it's very distinctive term for this type of headgear. So anyway, there's a lot of different types of toques that are out there. This one is another Columbia one, and it's specifically made for kind of outdoor activities. It's kind of made from a wicking material. On the inside, it's got kind of this sort of reflective material, and it's supposed to basically help kind of keep the heat in while allowing the moisture out. This is actually the second one that I had. I had one that I even liked even better, but Luna, who's lying down right here beside me, decided when she was little she was going to chew it. So basically I lost that. So again, you need something that's going to keep your head warm, that's basically going to cover as much of your head as possible and your ears. The only thing I find with this one, I thought it was exactly the same as the one that I had before. I find it's a little bit big for my head, so sometimes it does sort of slip down a little bit, and so I'm constantly kind of, sometimes I think I'm sort of in between sizes. And this one here, I believe it's kind of a dual size. So yeah, this is a large XL. So it's kind of a two size thing. I'm probably more of a large size. And so I find that it does, again, when I do have it on my head, I'm constantly kind of trying to keep it from sort of sliding down on top of my eyes. But it does cover quite a bit of my neck, covers my ears very, very well, and again, does breathe very, very efficiently. So I find it great for this type of hiking activity. Like I said, your head generates a lot of heat, and if you're out there in the wintertime, you find that your head's going to get very, very wet, and so you want something that's going to breathe, right? It's going to allow as much of that moisture out while keeping the heat in. Now, what I will often wear in conjunction with that is I will wear what's called a buff. And basically, this is what a buff is. You can find these things all over the place. You can find them, again, at an outdoor store. You can find them online. So just like the gaiters. And so this is what I will typically do with the buff. It's basically like when I was a kid, we used to have stuff called neck warmers. Basically, this is like a neck warmer, right? So what I'm going to do, hopefully I don't bang the microphone too much here, is essentially I would slip this over my head, and it's great because you can have a lot of different arrangements. You can just wear it down here on your neck if it's a little bit cooler. So for example, this morning when I took Luna for a walk, I had it up like this, right? And so essentially I am now covering the back part of my neck, and then what I will do is I will take my toque and slip it on top, right? And so now essentially the good chunk of my face is covered. My neck is covered. Really, that's only open is just this main part of my face. I can then also pull this up, right? And I can cover everything but my eyes. And so it's just very, very handy. It's very soft. And essentially what it's doing is just sort of helping break the wind a little bit. And you can actually couple it with more. I bought this one online, and it actually came in a pack of like 4 or 5 of them. And so you could actually slip another one on top. And so you can kind of get one here, and then you can kind of get one here, and then you can just kind of move it up and down if you want to. I've actually worn multiple ones at the same time, sometimes when it's really, really, really cold outside. And then the last piece that I will wear when I'm out hiking in the wintertime is some eyewear. And we've done an episode already. So when we did the summer hiking episode, I talked a little bit about eyewear. I do usually wear very good quality eyewear. Your eyes are really important. So I wear some pretty expensive pair of sunglasses when I'm sort of out and about, but I'm always very hesitant about wearing them when I'm going out hiking, because, you know, you're always kind of worried about damaging them or breaking them. They kind of, even just in general usage, they kind of get banged up. And so these were ones that I bought online last year, and I actually started using them last winter when I was actually out hiking, because I had the previous pair that I broke, and I was actually going to try something a little bit different. So typically what I would wear was, and these are like cycling glasses. And so the ones that I would always wear in the past were the ones where they were interchangeable, where you could pop the lenses out and change the lenses. And I always wear like the yellow lenses that would increase the contrast. I just found that when I was doing my hikes and things like that, sometimes it was hard to see things. You know, even with the yellow lens, it was hard to see things off the side of the trail and stuff like that. So I thought I would try out these ones. These ones are photochromatic. And so what they do is they basically adjust to the light conditions, right? So now they look pretty clear. And then obviously as this, you know, it's brighter outside, they get darker. And I found that they've been absolutely fantastic. And so I've been basically using them from the last year, using them in the wintertime, using them out on my railway hikes. And they've been great. Like I said, in the past, a lot of times when I'm off the trail, when I'm doing those railway hikes, I have to take them off because I can't see sometimes because it's dark or whatever. These are great. I have them on my face pretty much most of the time. And so why do we want to wear eyewear? For a bunch of different reasons. First of all, if it's sunny outside, obviously in the wintertime, you're going to get a lot of glare, and you can actually get snow blindness from that glare that's coming off the snow. So you really want to protect your eyes in that particular regard. It's also great from a safety perspective as well. When you're out hiking, sometimes if you're going through you know, a treed area or whatever, I've been poked in the eye before, and I wear contact lenses, and that's the worst thing you want, is get poked, and sometimes actually knocking the contact lens out, or just even general getting poked in the eye, you know, by a branch and things like that is not particularly fun. And then, you know, even when you're in the wintertime, sometimes the wind is not only cold, but it's also very, very dry. And it sometimes can really kind of bother you, you know, in terms of your eyes. It can really sort of dry your eyes out when you're hiking. Or even this morning, I was out sort of walking Luna at home, and we kind of got a little sort of snow squall. We got a little snow shower, and you know, the wind was coming pretty strong, and so the snow was actually kind of pelting you in the face. And when you have your, you know, your glasses on, it just makes life a lot easier, or essentially protects your eyes, and you don't have to worry about that wind or that snow kind of, you know, pelting you directly in the eye. So again, eyewear is extremely important when you're out doing those winter hikes. So I don't want to ramble on for too long, and so these are my kind of little tips. Again, we've only focused on just a couple of things. We've taken a look at some footwear things, and we've taken a look at some headwear things. Maybe we'll do another episode in the future where we'll talk about some other pieces of gear that are kind of important for winter hiking. But those are a couple of things that you can use to make your winter hikes more enjoyable. All right, so that brings us to the conclusion of today's episode. Hopefully you've enjoyed all the things that we've kind of talked about. Again, we are going to be back. We're going to be back next month with another episode, I promise this time. Again, make sure you take a look at my website. Make sure you visit all my social media pages. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. And again, thanks for tuning in, and stay safe, everyone.